Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Priceless Podcast, to a new episode. This podcast is made in partnership with the European Forum of LGBT Groups. So, recently I made a podcast about the European Forum and about some working groups that the European Forum of LGBT Christian groups has. And today I actually want to talk about one of those groups that is part of the European Forum, but it also goes much more globally, and it's called the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith. And it's promoting the rights of LGBT plus people of faith at the World Council of Churches. Before we start, you can click subscribe, you can like, you can comment afterwards, and of course you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Today with me, the guest that I invited is Gabriele Meyer, and she's from Germany, and she, as much as I understood, oversaw this group, and she was at the WCC, World Council of Churches conference this fall in Karlsruhe, Germany. So hello, Gabriele, and welcome to the Priceless Podcast.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, thank you for accepting. I found it very interesting and always see a lot of bravery in what people do with their activism. And it's not so easy. I heard many stories how hard it is sometimes to be part of the WCC. And probably it is easier today than it was a few years ago. But we'll hopefully talk about that. For the beginning, I will say a few words to get to know you a little bit, and you can answer to these words, say whatever comes to your mind with one word, or you can elaborate to whatever you want to say. So are you ready to start?
Yes, I'm ready.
So the first word is identity.
Immediately, my reflection during my dissertation process comes to my mind when I was reflecting, what does it mean to be a Christian, to be a German, and to be a lesbian, and to be a female in the context of the Holocaust. I'm second generation. My father was a soldier in World War II. And so when I left Germany and went to the United States to do my PhD program, I met Jewish people and I realized, I didn't deal with that topic sufficiently back home. Actually, it felt like I have a backpack, a burden with me from my family. And so I changed my dissertation topic and was dealing with being a Christian, a woman, a female, and a German, looking at our responsibility and looking what does it mean to be a lesbian. I looked at it with some students, a Jewish lesbian student. We did a paper together, but it didn't enter my dissertation project. It didn't enter that because it seemed too risky to publish that at that time.
Sexuality.
Well, being in the advocacy work for LGBTIQ people now for quite some years, I think about 20 years or longer, I got tired talking about sexuality. I prefer talking about justice because talking about sexuality is just a reduction. For me, it's much bigger. Working for justice for us as sexual minorities, but also for other minority groups.
Partnership.
Well, I think of Christina, my partner of 32 years. For many years we were hiding. We had to hide because I was working in the church. And actually I had also a strong censorship within my head. You can't do that. As a pious Christian woman, that is something which the Bible doesn't allow. More and more we found our way into a more emancipation came out. And only when I turned 60, we got married, because then it was possible according to German law. So we celebrated that wonderful in our own congregation with two pastors, one from Germany, one from Korea, because at that time already we were very much connected to international LGBTIQ communities.
Faith.
From very early childhood, Christian faith is very much in my life, but it was also very limiting. And so I looked for liberating movements, for opening doors, and feminist theology. Actually, first studying theology, then feminist theology and liberation theologies became so important and liberating for me. So I think today my faith changed a lot in comparison to what I believed during my childhood.
Church.
I'm a consecrated diaconal minister of the Lutheran Evangelical Church in southern Germany. First working as a youth minister in various areas, later more in the educational field, especially after I came back from the United States. Church is more institution. I belong to it, but I often was fighting against it, against this limiting and discriminating structures.
Family.
I'm the oldest daughter of 4 siblings. I'm the only one who has not children on her own. So sometimes I envy my siblings who have now children, grandchildren, but I realize that's not the only way how you can relate to the next generation. Teaching is very important for me in the educational field, relating to the younger generation.
And the last word is hope.
When I see today younger generations who continue to struggle for justice, for inclusion, for peace, for climate justice, that gives me hope that there are also young people who are not satisfied how our world is looking like.
Thank you so much for answering and reacting to my words. And thank you. I mean, I already know more about you, although we met before, but still, I don't know you that well. So that was really interesting for me to hear. So let's begin with our topic. I invited you to talk about the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith, and you were present at the World Council of Churches. And probably there are some viewers that don't know what the World Council of Churches is. Can you explain a little bit what it is about?
After World War II, the World Council of Churches, or the whole ecumenical movement, started to work together in a worldwide context ecumenically, seeing what damage even churches brought, and especially Germany, to the world. And they were decided to offer a platform where churches can contribute to peace in the world. It was founded in Amsterdam 1948, and since then, always after 7 or 8 years, they meet at a global conference and they switch from one continent to the next. So this year's conference, 2022 in Karlsruhe, Germany, was actually the very first time convening in Germany and only the second time meeting in Europe. So we were very honored. The World Council of Churches comprises today 352 churches from all corners of our globe. The whole variety of Protestant churches, Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterians, Anglicans, some Pentecostals, and Orthodox churches. Many are coming from Orthodox churches. And the Roman Catholic Church, they have more status as an observer. They are not an actual member, but they collaborate in some bodies in a very constructive way. WCC is an umbrella of members and offers a platform where they can convene discuss and develop policies for the next 8 years. And their goal is to address issues individual churches members cannot handle on their own. And so it's a platform on worldwide level to work for justice and peace.
So you talked now a little bit about the World Council of Churches. Let's go to the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith that were present at the WCC. So when and why did the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith decide to become a part or to be present at the WCC conference or summit?
Well, actually, until 3 or 4 years ago, we were the global LGBTIQ coalition, who were meeting regularly on Zoom conferences since 2013. That's when the last WCC Assembly took place in Busan, South Korea. And actually, since Harare, 1998, the European Forum was present at the assemblies, always with a small team of 3-4 people, and offered a workshop and reached out to other LGBTIQ people. But that was really at the margins. But it was important, and they raised issues for those who could hear. After 2013, we decided, as global coalition, these are members more than the European Forum, but rather a global network from all continents, that we will continue. We won't let it go now, but every year we had an exchange with staff from WCC, and especially we wanted to accompany the reference group on human sexuality. Reference group on human sexuality is a program tool of the WCC, where they continue working on a topic that they had decided on their assembly. And in 2013, we are a little bit proud on it, that it was possible to reinstall that reference group on human sexuality. And 4 members of the human sexuality reference group were actually also members of the global coalition. That was excellent. It was like a gift from God. So we were closely traveling with them and also realizing their struggles. Now, coming closer to the assembly in 2022 in Karlsruhe, we were also experiencing the slowdown through Corona, postponing preparational workshops, I think 3 times, and also postponing the whole assembly. And we realized if we want to make really a strong visibility in Karlsruhe, we need to change from our structure as a network into a structure of project. And that's when we divided our personnel, all volunteers, into 4 subgroups. One group was working with finances, fundraising, another group on communications. We decided to prepare a publication, and also regarding the program, how can we offer safe spaces? And that's when we started to call us Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith, because the term pilgrimage is very, very important in the language of the WCC. And we wanted to make sure you cannot neglect us, you cannot exclude us. We don't just come in to offer a small workshop outside of the official program. Now, since we are traveling since 2013 with a reference group, with a regular exchange in Geneva, always traveling with the international team, now we really want to make a visibility in Karlsruhe that people can see, taking advantage. It's taking place in Europe, and it's taking place in a liberal church, Baden Church in Karlsruhe. So we felt the responsibility, that is really a chance, a privilege which we can use.
So what are the challenges of participating at the WCC as LGBT plus people and as Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith?
I have to add to the structure of the WCC and the composition of the 352 churches from all denominations. They are very conservative ones. There are really some churches who have in their teaching that homosexuality is an abomination and that homosexuals should go to hell. And LGBT people or queer people, they are just crazy. They need a healing. They need maybe pastoral care. We don't talk with them. So there is no MCC, for instance, or other inclusive churches. They have a hard stand within the worldwide community. And it's like we are living within our own churches, some more conservative, other more open-minded. But through ecumenical collaboration, there is a chance that voices can be heard, can be brought to the forefront, which are excluded by very discriminatory or even hate speech talking churches. And so we need a lot of patience, wisdom. We cannot be explicitly advocates like you can do it on the Pride Festival. We need to look at the doors that can open, which can offer us an entrance through allies, through other open-minded people.
So how do you, one question comes to my mind, how does that look practically, in practice? What is happening, during the WCC?
During the assembly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
At the assembly, about 4,000 people come together. All the member churches are sending their delegates, and they have an official status. And we try to reach out and to inform one another. Do we know any allies among the delegates? Do we know any LGBTIQ people among the delegates? And we make our program known that we can connect during the assembly. So those 4 subgroups of our project structures developed their work further, and at the end we had 8 teams who were preparing program publication, all these things. Just an example, 2.5 years ago, when we did the decision, we want to publish a booklet like we had done for 2013 in Busan. It will be more inclusive, more denominations, and at the end there were 28 people offering their testimonies from all ways of their lives, we covered all the lesbians, gay, transgender, intersex people, bisexual people, the whole variety of the queer communities. And we went to countries where they are really in difficult situation. And since the main theme of the assembly was reconciliation and unity, we chose the topic reconciliation from the margins. So people from the queer community who grew up, who are struggling at the margins, they share insights how they were able to connect their personal life, their spirituality, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, and how they survived all those struggles and obstacles. This booklet of 28 testimonies was published and translated into 10 languages, and mostly by volunteers. It was a huge work of 2.5 years, and at the end it was printed and shipped to Germany, to Karlsruhe. We tried to distribute as many as possible, especially at our booth. And at the booth from early morning to the evening, we had teams who were standing there and engaging people in conversations. I think our booth was one which was the most busiest. And people to distribute our booklets, but also to get them interested in our programs. We had a special pamphlet, a flyer, on the program. Besides the booth, we also offered a workshop in collaboration with a reference group on human sexuality. And also we had a whole center, one of the 8 centers, encounter centers in Karlsruhe for visitors, delegates, whoever wanted to come. And this center offered a program on 5 full days from morning to late afternoon. And we were able to shape the program and offer panelists from our Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith people. So there were panels on masculinities or on do no harm, on LGBTIQ people, or the meaning of Bible, or how the reference group on human sexuality is working, or intersectionality, how LGBTIQ people and people of color, do they have a safe place in the churches? So there was a lot of program attracting people, including also 2 queer devotions and published. And so people were coming, and in average about 60 people were showing up for one of these panels. And that is quite remarkable because it was outside of the main venue. And what was really special, we were able to do with the fundraising, not only to finance this publication, but also to get people from the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith coming to Karlsruhe to be there as resource persons. And if you imagine, it's not a German, it's not a European event, it's a global event. So bringing people from Hong Kong, from Vancouver, from Denmark, from Cape Town, from Latin America, from Accra, Ghana, that is a lot of flight expenses, and also staying in a hotel for 10 days, a lot of expenses. But through the effort of doing 3 years of fundraising, we were able to accomplish that.
So, looking back at what Rainbow Pilgrims did during the history, I mean, you said it changed its name during a time. It wasn't Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith all the time. But what progress do you see has been made? And maybe if you can compare of how it was in the beginnings and how it changed and what it looks like right now.
If I compare it with the assembly in Busan, we had 1 booth. And accidentally, other LGBTIQ people learned about it. We had 2 side events with 2 African senior leaders. And we had a meeting every evening in one of the hotel rooms. So it was more organized on the spot. But learning from that, we realized now it grew into a project structure. And the brand Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith actually became known. It went so far that even staff of the WCC had to report to the governing body, what is going on with the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith? Who are they? Why are they so visible? So it scared people, and we had to, or not we, the general secretary with whom we were working, Isabelle Piri, she had to explain who we are. And at that point, it turned out that it was really valid that we continued the past 8 years on an annual basis, working with them, building up trust, accepting their expectations that we wouldn't make any public photos or we wouldn't report in the public on our regular conversations, because that would have stirred up too much anger or fear among the very conservative churches. And so we agreed. It's a quiet, a patient, a calm, a diplomatic a faithful journey we are going with the WCC during the past 8 years, but it turned out it was really helpful at the end.
Yeah, I guess sometimes we think that if we take a more mellow route, where we also show a lot of respect, many people will think, oh, this won't work, we won't be visible, but often it helps. It maybe takes a little bit longer to be visible, but the quality of the relationships that are built and the trust that is built is very important on this journey. So I really like your approach. So what did you enjoy the most this year at the summit in Karlsruhe?
Especially after Corona, when we didn't have a chance to meet in person. And also it's the question of finances. But coming together with 21 Rainbow Pilgrims from all over the world and collaborating in a very intensive way for 9 days. And then additionally 15 volunteers, mostly from Germany and Europe, working together as a team of 35 people. That was wonderful. Every evening we could meet in a congregational home whose address was confident. That was an agreement with the police to give us some protection. And so we had a soup and a salad, and we had a sharing. What were our most impressive experiences today? What do we need? And then we had a closing devotion in a church. That was the backbone of our team and our strength. And that was something I enjoyed most, because during the day we were spread everywhere, in the encounter center, in the booth, in the workshop, running around, distributing the boxes, having many conversations. But in the evening we came together and felt a community, and we had tears together, we had laughter together, we had a gala dinner at the end and thanked one another. That was the most enjoyable thing. And I think that community, that Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith brand will continue.
Is there anything specific that happened at this assembly that you would say this was a really important thing that happened for our visibility or for the visibility of LGBT plus people in general?
You know, WCC is a huge ship and it moves very slowly. And that is always a tension between the conservative and the more progressive forces. And in this year, Ukraine and Russia, that was very much on the topic. And taking place in Germany, the worries about how the conflict, Palestinians and Israeli, was very much on the mind of many church leaders. So in a way, they didn't care so much about us, like in Busan. In Busan, there were 12 buses from conservative churches demonstrating against WCC, demonstrating against homosexuals. But this year, after 8 years of more calm relational work, there was a feeling that there are core people, allies who are standing behind us. So we were much more relaxed. We could walk around. I wasn't anymore worried having my name tag and saying Rainbow Pilgrims. In Busan, I was. And so that atmosphere that people actually interviewed us and broadcasted us, and our publications work on every day they reported on our panels, it was more like we are there and we have the courage to be there. Regarding WCC, at the final plenary, the program guidelines committee, they presented the proposal that the reference group on human sexuality would continue. And actually that is a huge step, because we had been worried that they would turn it down. There are much more important topics, so why do we continue? And this was accepted. And also, I don't know if you can see that, Conversations on the Pilgrim Way. That is the resource book of the reference group on human sexuality. In a way, this is the result of 8 years of work. And this was accepted, and we could help to print it because there was not sufficient money. And Misha was very efficient to print it, so we could help actually the reference group to receive that at the assembly. And that is also important because it's part of that final recommendation. People should work with this resource book because churches who want to deal with it, no one is forced to do it. No one is obliged. But you can deal with it if you want to do it in a very thorough way.
So I just realized there is one question, another question that I didn't write down, but I think it's really important. What are the next steps of Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith? What are the future plans?
We have to admit that we are now in a transition phase. We realize it's taking place in Geneva. New governing bodies are elected and nominated. And since we are connected, or we decided to be connected to the reference group on human sexuality, we are waiting until June 2023 when the new reference group on human sexuality will be nominated. But we made already sure that to communicate to WCC staff, we are interested to continue. Even so, they are in transition, and Isabel Firi is stepping down. 10 days ago, we had a Zoom call with her, saying farewell, bidding farewell to her, thanking her for our collaboration in the past 8 years, but also making contact with her successor, that this work is not getting lost in that transition time of WCC, personnel of the governing bodies, but also us as Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith. In the past 7-8 years, European Forum had kind of administrative role or coordinating role. Most of the time I was coordinating then with Mette Basbol from Denmark. And so we as European Forum working group with WCC are also in a transition, because I'm also stepping down, but we want to make sure until Venlo, the next annual conference of European Forum, that the work continues, that we have a stable working group, and it's clear who is the face, who is the speaker, and between Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith and European Forum Working Group, we need to clarify who is taking which role. Will European Forum continue as the kind of office, but all done as volunteers? Or can we do it on a lower level, because it's a lot of energy and time? Can we do it on a lower level until it's clear when the next ecumenical events of the WCC are being announced? And then we hope we can move it on to that person. For instance, in case the next assembly will be in Cape Town, which is not yet decided at all, but just as an example, then we hope an NGO or a member of the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith can take over our role, which we had in the past years. So there's a lot of transition, but we are holding the threads, noting that nothing is getting lost.
Great. What if people are listening to what you're saying and are maybe hearing about the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith for the first time? Maybe they're interested to either become part or support your work or be part in any other way. What can people do in between the conferences? Like, what can they do right now if they want to be part in any way with the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith?
They can visit our website, Rainbow Pilgrims Faith. And there's a lot of material. Also all the brochures on reconciliation from the margins, but also a lot reporting on what happened during the assembly. They can visit the website of European Forum. And we are now working towards Venlo, the annual conference. A workshop will be offered, a report will be given, an invitation will be expressed who would like to join the new working group. And we will report on each annual conference of the European Forum. And then we will look to the next regional ecumenical conferences, and we'll see that the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith, that means beyond European Forum, will continue to offer, to contribute to the visibility, to work for inclusion. So if people listen to their churches, what is going on in the ecumenical movement, that helps. And then understand we need to continue to be visible, not to disappear again, but rather working on that movement, on that energy we saw in Karlsruhe, that LGBTIQ are normal Christians who can work a lot for inclusion and looking at other marginalized groups and include them. And the last thing, open our ears for those queer siblings who are much more marginalized, much more discriminated. For instance, like me in Germany, I'm very privileged. But we have a responsibility because of that privilege for those who are really like in Eastern Europe or in Middle Asia or in Africa, and to develop actions of solidarity or join such actions that they feel they are not left alone.
Well, we're coming towards the end of our interview, but I have to ask my last famous question. Is there anything I haven't asked you and you would like to add at the end?
No, I'm satisfied. I hope I was understandable because there were some internal structures. But I hope it's a low journey. It requires a lot of breath not to give up. But it's very promising, and we were just happy what turned out in Karlsruhe.
If there are any questions from our viewers and listeners, is there a way to get into contact through your webpage of the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith?
Yes, sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. We'll definitely put the link of the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith in the podcast description. So please check it out. Thank you, Gabriele, for being willing to do this interview and talk about the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith. And I don't know, let us be part of what the Rainbow Pilgrims of Faith are and get to know a little bit more about this important work. Thank you, dear viewers and listeners, for being with us today. As I said, you can check out all the links in the podcast description and some things that Gabriele mentioned. The podcast was made in partnership with the European Forum of LGBT Christian Groups. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and also comment to what you heard. This is all helping for more people hear about this podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And if you like this podcast actually relies on donations from people and is surviving because of the goodwill of people who donate towards this podcast. And you can find out how in the podcast description. So thank you, everyone. See you next time. Until then, bye. And bye, Gabriele.
Bye. Thank you very much, Mihail.